So Erikson suggested that there's 8 stages of psychosocial development. We're going to take a little story of an individual named Trey from birth through death and take a look at what would happen during each of these 8 stages. So the first stage is when Trey's an infant, and he's going through this idea of trust versus mistrust. When he cries, as we can see here, and he's crying with his big open mouth, he's wah, wah, wah. His parents meet his needs, so he develops a sense of trust. Now, in the next stage, autonomy versus shame and doubt, Trey's become a little bit mobile, and he's interested in trying to climb the stairs, getting into things he shouldn't, getting involved, in things that are honestly kind of dangerous for him as a kid, and he tends to have actually parents who are extremely overprotective. Way too overprotective. And what they do is they shame him and create doubt in him because of this. They don't allow him to demonstrate that autonomy. Now, is it safe for Trey to go up these stairs? Of course not. You might want to put up a child gate or something here so that he's not interested in doing that. But there's other things that we could do that allow Trey to do. For example, Trey might like to play in the kitchen and go into cabinets. Well, if we have cabinets here, we can make sure that on the lower level cabinets that Trey wants to go into, there are things that aren't going to hurt him. No knives, nothing sharp, no dangerous chemicals or anything like that. But maybe there's just some plastic Tupperware, and we allow Trey to play with that stuff because that's not going to hurt him and develop his autonomy that way. So Trey has a sense of trust, but he's also a little unsure of himself because of that shame and doubt in the second stage. In the third stage here, it's a sense of initiative versus guilt. Trey's basically in preschool here, and a classmate asks Trey to help her build with blocks. But Trey doesn't know what to do. He has a sense of trust in relationships, but because of that shame and doubt, he's not sure how to interact with other people. So he actually resolves this by having a sense of guilt here too, because he isn't able to take on that initiative himself of connecting with his peers, developing relationships, especially on a social level. In the fourth stage, the conflict is between industry and an inferiority. So he's developing some skills, some self-efficacy, or he's starting to feel inferior. Now, when he works on individual tasks, because of his sense of trust and because of his abilities, so we see here doing his math problems, he develops a sense of industry there. But he also develops inferiority because of that guilt and that shame and doubt he developed earlier in stages, and he's not able to connect with his peers. With the teacher, he's good. He can connect with them to some extent because he's allowed to do individual tasks here. But when he's required to be out at recess and in the playroom, connect with other people, he has difficulty there. So he has a little bit of both here. He doesn't resolve necessarily on one side or the other. The fifth stage happens to occur during around the teenage years, during adolescence. And what an individual is trying to do is develop identity or what's called role confusion. So really, they're not sure who they are. Here, Trey, we can see, is thinking about himself. What kind of career do I want to go do? Do I want to go to college? Do I want to do something else? What kind of people do I want to hang out with? Who are my friends? What are my interests? What do I like to do? What are my, do I like sports? Which teams do I like? And developing all these senses of identity and figuring out who he is as an individual. He successfully resolves this stage and figures out some good things about himself. Now we're getting into Trey's 20s and 30s, and we have intimacy versus isolation here. And he's interested in developing intimate relationships. Unfortunately, because of the issues he had developing social interactions with people earlier in his life, because of that shame and doubt and the guilt he had when he tried to connect with his peers, as well as that sense of inferiority, he finds himself isolated early on. He has difficulty connecting. He's a very individual type person and doesn't feel good connecting with other people. Eventually, though, he's able to resolve this and develop a sense of intimacy, finds a partner, someone he kind of falls in love with and gets married to. Now we're getting into the 40s and 50s for Trey, and you can see, again, he developed a sense of intimacy, so this is him and his partner. And during this stage, we have generativity versus stagnation. So generativity is a sense of giving back. You're generative, you're providing, versus you're stagnant, you're still, you're not doing anything. Trey develops a sense of generativity. Now, because he developed this intimate relationship so late in his life, they decided not to have kids because she was older as well. They didn't really want kids. They were, for whatever reasons. So he's finding ways to give back other than through kids, which is the way that most people tend to give back. But he's doing it through volunteer opportunities and getting involved in those types of things. Finally, we see Trey in old age, reminiscing about his happy life. In this final stage of our lives, we go through either integrity or despair. And he would fall into the side of integrity here because, again, he's reminiscing about his happy life. He feels very, very happy with the way his life went. He looks back over it. He gave back to people. He had figured out who he was and developed good, strong relationships because of that sense of identity. Whereas other people may fall on the other end of the spectrum and be despairing and regretful about his life. Fortunately, his story has a happy ending.